Dear Oliver and the burning heat of a lie. In a quiet neighborhood called Windy Pines, where everyone knew everyone else, lived a 9-year-old boy named Oliver. Oliver was an ordinary boy who loved playing football, enjoyed video games, and liked riding his bike with his friends. However, Oliver had a very strange, perhaps even magical, trait that no other child in the world had. Whenever he hid the truth or told even a tiny lie, his ears would suddenly turn as red as beetroot and start to heat up as if there were a furnace burning inside them. This wasn't just a slight blush, his ears would glow red enough to be seen in the dark, and Oliver could feel that heat right on his cheeks. Because of this, Oliver was known as Honest Oliver. Because it was impossible for him to lie. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. It was a sunny Saturday morning. Oliver's mum, Martha, and dad, David, had gone out shopping. Left home alone, Oliver was feeling bored. As his dad was leaving, he had given him a strict warning. Oliver, do not go into my study and do not touch that new model plane I made. The glue hasn't dried yet. Oliver had said, "Okay, Dad." But curiosity was like an itch. Once it started, it was hard to stop. Oliver pushed open the door to his dad's study. In the middle of the room, on the desk, stood the magnificent, silver jet plane model his dad had been working on for months. "I'll just look at it closely," Oliver said to himself. "I won't touch it." He went inside. The model was shining so beautifully that he reached out his hand. "Nothing will happen if I just touch the tip of the wing," he thought. He extended his finger. The moment he touched it, his elbow knocked into a glass of water on the desk. Splash! The glass tipped over, water spilled onto the model, and as Oliver panicked trying to catch the glass, his arm hit the plane. The model fell to the floor and snapped in two with a loud crack. Oliver looked down in horror. His heart was beating as if it wanted to jump out of his chest. His dad's favorite model was ruined. He quickly gathered the pieces and tried to stick them back together in a hurry, but the plane didn't look like it used to, it was all wonky. Just then, he heard the sound of the front door. His mum and dad were home. His dad, David, walked into the study and saw the wet patch on the floor and the wonky plane. His face fell. "Oliver," said his dad, his voice full of disappointment. "What happened here? Did you go into the room?" Thousands of thoughts raced through Oliver's mind in seconds. If he said yes, his dad would be very upset and cross. Maybe he wouldn't be allowed to play video games for weeks. In that moment of fear, the first lie spilled out of his mouth. "No, Dad, I didn't go in." The window. Yes, the window was open. The wind blew, the curtains flapped, and knocked the glass over. "I heard the noise and came running, but it was too late." The moment he finished that sentence, Oliver felt a strange tingling in his ears. First, a slight warmth began. Then this warmth grew and grew, until it felt as if boiling water was being poured onto his ears. His dad looked at Oliver suspiciously. Oliver immediately pulled the hood of his jumper up over his head. "Why have you put your hood up?" The house is warm, said his dad. I'm cold. I'm shivering a bit, said Oliver. This was the second lie, and his ears were throbbing now. The next day was Monday. Oliver didn't want to go to school because his ears were still hot. The weight of the lie hadn't settled on his shoulders, but on his ears. At breakfast, his mum asked, reaching out her hand, Oliver, your ears look bright red, do you have a fever? Oliver turned his head away quickly. No, Mum, my pillow was hard, that's why they're red, he said. Third lie. His ears heated up so much that Oliver thought he could hear them sizzling. When he got to school, his best friend Liam was surprised by Oliver's appearance. Oliver was wearing a thick woolly hat, even though it was sunny outside. Hey Oliver, are you ill? Asked Liam. Oliver could have told his friend the truth. But once you start lying, it is very hard to turn back. You have to tell another lie to cover the first one. Yes, I have an ear infection. The doctor said the wind shouldn't get to them, said Oliver. The lesson began. Their teacher, Miss Sophia, said, everyone take off your hats please children, we are in class. The whole class took off their hats. Except Oliver. Oliver, said Miss Sophia. You too, please. Trembling, Oliver took off his woolly hat. A giggle rippled through the classroom. Because Oliver's ears were glowing like the red light on a traffic signal. They were so red, they were almost purple. Maher, who sat in the back row, shouted, Wow! Oliver looks like he's radioactive. The class burst into laughter. Oliver wanted the ground to swallow him up in shame. His ears weren't just hot, they hurt. It felt like someone was pulling and squeezing them. This pain was the voice of his conscience. When Oliver got home that evening, he felt terrible. He locked himself in his room. He looked in the mirror. He was scared of what he saw. His ears were swollen and burning like fire. He ran to the bathroom, soaked a flannel in cold water, and pressed it against his ears. Hiss! But it didn't work. The flannel got warm, but his ears didn't cool down. Then he took a bag of ice from the freezer and put it on his ears. The ice melted, but that burning heat didn't go away. Because this heat wasn't coming from the outside. This was the fire of guilt coming from inside, from his heart. Oliver realized that even if he poured all the water in the ocean over himself, this fire wouldn't go out unless he told the truth. He lay in bed but couldn't sleep. His dad's sad face kept appearing before his eyes. The wind lie. The pillow lie. The illness lie. They had all piled up on top of each other and become a huge mountain. And Oliver was being crushed under this mountain. Lying, thought Oliver, is much worse than breaking something. A broken thing can be glued, but when you lie, you break yourself. It was past midnight. The house was silent. Oliver couldn't take it anymore. He got out of bed. He went to the living room. His dad, David, was sitting on the sofa, holding the wonky plane, looking sad. Oliver felt a lump in his throat. His ears were throbbing. He took a deep breath. "Dad," he whispered. His dad looked up. "Oliver? Why aren't you asleep?" Oliver sat next to his dad. Tears started to roll down his cheeks. "Dad." "It wasn't the wind," he said. His voice was shaking. "I went into the room. I was curious. I wanted to touch it, but I knocked the glass over. I broke the plane. I was so scared you would be cross, so I lied. I am sorry." The moment Oliver said these words, the strangest thing in the world happened. It was as if someone had opened a valve. The pressure and heat in his ears began to release with a whoosh. That burning fire was replaced by a cool breeze. The color of his ears turned from red back to normal in seconds. Oliver took a deep, very deep breath. Tons of weight had been lifted from his shoulders. His dad put the plane aside. There was no anger on his face, only a sad smile. "You know, Oliver," said his dad, "I knew the plane didn't fall because of the wind. The windows were locked." Oliver was surprised. "You knew? Then why didn't you get cross with me?" His dad stroked Oliver's ears, which were now back to normal. "I waited for you to tell the truth. Look, son, this plane is just plastic and paint. We can make a new one, we can fix it. But a lie breaks the trust between us. And trust cannot be fixed as easily as a model plane. When you lied, not only did your ears burn, but my heart hurt too. Because I thought my son was afraid of me and didn't trust me." Oliver hugged his dad. "Never again," he said. "Even if my ears don't burn, I won't lie. Because the fire inside hurts much more than my ears." After that day, Oliver really changed. Of course, he sometimes got into mischief, and sometimes he made mistakes. Once he broke Liam's bike, and another time he smashed his mum's vase. But every time, before his ears even had a chance to turn red, he ran and told the truth. Saying, "I did it, I'm sorry," was sometimes hard. Maybe his face blushed a little, but Oliver had learned this. A moment of blushing was much better than his ears and conscience burning for days. And in the town of Windy Pines, Oliver was no longer known as the red-eared boy, but as brave-hearted honest Oliver. Because everyone knew that admitting a mistake takes much more courage than never making one at all.